Josh, first, come on up here, Josh, but I want to point out the real important people in your family. Corey, would you wave your hand? And then was that one of your boys right there? Which one's that? All right, and then there's two more. Y'all stand up, would you? These are two more of their boys. Look at these clean-cut, fine-looking young men. Give them a hand, and please welcome Josh Worthington.
Thank you very much. It was just about 4 years ago, this coming July, that our family was getting ready to make our voyage that we do every single summer on what we call our family trip. And my wife and I are quick to point out that that is very different than a vacation. Her and I try and take a vacation each year, and her and I and the boys try and take a family trip. And we left the corner of southwest Missouri where we call home, and we had started to venture towards the Grand Canyon. And none of us had ever been to the Grand Canyon. I guess they're getting those slides pulled up there here. And so we're making our way all across, and we're stopping as we go, and we're stopping as we go. And we get pretty close to getting to the Grand Canyon, and we stop and we get a little something to eat, and the boys are kind of apprehensive, and I'm kind of apprehensive. We get there that night before we're going to go down inside the Grand Canyon. We're walking around, and we're looking at it a little bit. And I'll just be honest with you, my hands started to sweat just a little bit, thinking that the next morning we were going to walk down in there with, at the time, a 6-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 10-year-old. And so here we go, venturing off down into the Grand Canyon the next morning. We're going to take the Bright Angel Trail. Some of you may be familiar with it. And we head off into the Grand Canyon. We're starting to make it just a little ways down into the Grand Canyon, and I start to see these people coming back up on their venture. And they look quite a bit different than we did. I see people walking up through the trail in the Grand Canyon, and they've got walking sticks, and they're in hiking boots, and they got these things called hydration packs on their back, and some of them look like they've died and come back again. And here's my wife and I and 3 boys, all under the age of 10. We each have a water bottle that we picked up in the hotel lobby as we left. My wife's got 2 packs of peanuts in her little pouch and a Ziploc bag of grapes. And me, her, and 3 boys head off into the Grand Canyon. I'm watching these people come back up to look like they're the most professionals on the face of the earth, and some of them are crying. And I'm looking at my wife, and I'm asking her, really? You vetted all this, right? Like, I mean, the 6-year-old and us, we can go down through here. Yeah, it'll be fine. And so we take off to the Grand Canyon. We're just going to go about halfway down the Grand Canyon, and we're going to come back up, because my wife did think that it was irrational to take a 6-year-old clear to the bottom and back up in one day. So we get to where we're going to stop, and I'm sitting there with this little boy you see, and he looks at me, and he looks up at the rim of the Grand Canyon. And he looks back at me, and he says, "Can we make it back up there?" I had my doubts too, just to be real honest with you. Now, you'll be happy to know that, in fact, we did. We were both pretty relieved when we got up through there, but I thought for a moment when he said, "Can we make it back up there?" It reminded me just a little bit of when Andy assigned me this topic, can a young American start his own beef enterprise in the 21st century? And I was reminded of little Corbin halfway down in the Grand Canyon looking up at the rim going, "Can we make it?" And my family and I have approached it in a similar way that we approached that trek back up from midway down the Grand Canyon, and that was, there was no other choice. We had to come back up out of the Grand Canyon. We had to. And I also thought just a little bit about the fact that I watched all these people coming back up with these backpacks on and their hiking sticks and hiking boots and hydration packs and all these things, and they've got all the equipment in the world and they're ready to go. And here we are with a water bottle and 2 bags of peanuts and some grapes and a 6-year-old. But the concept that that was the only option was to go down and come back up is the same option that we operate our farm with, and that is, that's all we can do. There's no choice but to go back up. And I think, we have to be reminded sometimes, don't we? It's not always about all the equipment that you have. There were people there that day that had far more equipment than I do, but yet they were struggling to get back up. Sometimes it's not the equipment, but it's the mental fortitude, isn't it? Everybody in this room has had to have an awful lot of mental fortitude in the ranching business, haven't you? And my hat's off to you. Because the reality is all those people that raise their hand for multi-generational ranching operations, I would say you're the ones that can stand up here and give the talk, can the young rancher make it? Because you're looking at a young rancher that always tells people we haven't made it yet, but we're thankful every day that we have the opportunity to get up and try. And all of you do that every single day, don't you? You do it every single day. You're thankful for the option to get up and try. And often you look at it with the mental fortitude, but there is no other option but to succeed. There is no other option to put in place whatever it is God put in front of you to go right on through. Every day we do that. And so here we answer the question that I was charged with today. Can a young American make it in the ranching business today, starting from nothing? You heard Donald say, and it's not that we're bragging, it was just our reality. My wife and I didn't have an acre. We didn't inherit $1. We didn't have a cow. We bought 4 cows. We were leasing a house that had a 3/4 acre yard with it, and I owned a car when I was working for the Missouri Angus Association. The first set of bulls I fed with buckets out of the trunk of that car. And the first cows we owned ran in the yard of a house that we rented, much to the chagrin of my landlord and my wife, who trekked across in the dark every morning to go to work. So we'll set out and try and answer that. I am a numbers guy, and that's the theme of your conference. I'm a data junkie. It's the only way I understood how to make it in this business was to understand the numbers. And so I want to throw out a couple basic numbers at you. Here's the first one. This probably won't shock anyone, but the average age of the American farmer is 58. 58. So some of you are out there looking around going, well, I'm on one side or the other of it, right? Now here's the one that surprised me a little bit. The average age of the beginning farmer is 46. Donald Brown, I haven't even made it yet to be a beginning farmer. So there's still hope for me. And so when we think about these numbers, and we're going to say it's all about the numbers, and we ask the question, can a young American start a beef business and be successful in the 21st century? I would tell you we have no other choice. It's like coming back up out of the Grand Canyon. There is a place for young people in this industry because there has to be. Cattle aren't going to take care of themselves. And there is going to be a generation turnover in the people who care for the cattle on the face of this earth that God gave us. And so, yes, there is a place for us. And frankly, the industry needs us, doesn't it? The industry needs young people. I see back through the tables back there and throughout this thing, a lot of college students represented. Let me tell you something. The industry very much needs you. I will go off on my tangent for just a little bit if you'll allow me, but you stop me when you hear something that's not correct, okay? This is the mantra of most farmers and ranchers in the world in which we live today. Again, just raise your hand, stop me if I say something that you think you haven't heard. And that is the fact that we always believe we work 366 days a year, 25 hours a day. We never take a vacation because it just wouldn't be right. We never want to tell anybody we made any money. We're not going to take the kids anywhere. Don't show that you've been successful in anything. Make sure everybody knows that you're working harder than them. And then always know that most people in the world think that you're trying to kill them. And in the very same breath, we ask the question, why is the next generation not coming back? Because they listened. They've been listening. We need to change. Tucker talked earlier about telling our story, right? We need to change the mantra that we say. I've been very fortunate. Again, we haven't made it in the seed stock business, but I get to keep getting up and trying. I've been very blessed with our family. I'm going to be the first to tell you, we've had some very healthy sales. I'm thankful for it. We were able to build a house. I'm thankful for that. We have 2 guys that work for us full time. I'm thankful for that. Young people, you need to know it's okay to be successful in the ranching business, be successful in anything else that you want to do, and then go out and, I know this will sound foreign, take your kids on a trip. Hike into the Grand Canyon, not with a 6-year-old, but do it, right? The question becomes, do we actually want the job? Do we actually want it? And we have to be serious when we ask that question. Because for all of you who said that you've been multi-generational ranches, at some point or another, everybody had to sit down at the kitchen table and really be serious about answering that question. Do we actually want the job? And as a first-generation breeder, I didn't have the luxury of sitting down at the table with anybody else to share their experience with me. It was my wife and I. There was nobody reminding us about what happened in the 80s. There was nobody reminding us that we don't use this bull because of this. It didn't exist. Now, I will also tell you, while there's the negatives to that, there was also the benefit of the fact that there was nobody sitting at the kitchen table to say, we can't do it like this because we've never done it like this and we don't do it that way. So there's some pros and cons to it. But at the end of the day, we have to answer this question, do we want the job? And I think in order to answer that question, we have to understand what exactly it is that motivates us. Motivation is defined by the general desire or willingness for someone to do something. What motivates us? What motivates you? If we're going to answer the question, do we want the job of being a rancher in the world today, we have to know what motivates you. This is different for everybody. Think about it like this. I had a young man come up to me one time and he said, Josh, there's just no way for a young person to enter the ranching business if you don't have it to come back to. There's just no way. I said, well, what is it exactly that gets you excited every morning? What do you want to do? He said, I just want to get up every morning. I want to go take care of cows. I said, well, what drives you? He said, I just like being outside in God's creation. I want to be there. I don't want to be cooped up inside. I love that. I said, but what's your drive? He said, that's it. That's what I want. I said, do you love all the paperwork? He said, I hate paperwork. I said, do you love people? He said, I'd just soon be around cows. His motivation was not that he needed to own a ranching operation. His motivation was he wanted to get up every morning and take care of cattle in God's creation. He didn't need to own the ranch to do that. We have to understand what motivates us to answer that question of which job it is that we want. And we have to be honest with ourselves about that. When you're speaking with young people, and perhaps you are one in the audience today, know what motivates you and then pinpoint the things that actually get that for you. Don't go down this trail because you think it's the only one. Understand what motivates you. I want you to understand what motivates me. Don will introduce them to you. This is what motivates me. I do not know if any one of those three young boys want to come back into the ranching business. I don't know that. And as young as they are, I'm not going to pigeonhole them and tell them they have to. But I will tell you that I'm going to build the thing in such a way that if one or all of them want to, I'm going to bust my tail so that they have the opportunity to. And that's my motivation. I understand that I like to build things. I'm driven by it. I want to understand the concept. I want to know how we get to where we're going in any type of business model. And so that's what led me to this. Anybody think they get up any morning and it's going to be the same as the previous morning when you're in the ranching business? No, that thing throws something new at you every single day, doesn't it? If you love that, and that's what motivates you is figuring out how to build something when it's different every day, well, I don't have to tell you why I love ranching business. I think for the rest of this short discussion, I want you to have some comprehension of who we are. And Donald did a great job of kind of explaining that. We're first-generation Angus breeders in the corner of southwest Missouri. We went from 4 cows to about 350 cows now. We also work with cooperators to put in about another 300 to 350 embryos for us each year. That allows us through 2 bull sales, one in the spring and one in the fall. We sell about 200 bulls a year. We also work with our customers to market commercial bred heifers, and to date we've sold a little over $2 million worth of commercial heifers for our customers that are using our bulls. It's a very focused business. It's total AI and ET. It's very labor intensive. And it's not that I think that there's not good bulls out there to use. There certainly is. We use a total AI and ET program because I can deliver higher levels of accuracy with those progeny-proven sires. And so when I sell somebody a Cavanese bull or a high-growth bull or a carcass bull or a bull that does it all, I have that much more telling me that what I sold them is exactly what it is. It's right. And I need that. I need to be able to deliver that to our customers. That's a little bit about who we are. And as Donald told you, it started with 4 cows in a rental yard. This is the way I look at any business. People, product, and performance. People, product, performance. Now the problem is, I think that lots of people would agree that this is how we look at business. But is it actually how we look at the cattle business? Do we look at the business that we are in ranching as that, as a business? Let me tell you something. My grandpa would have said that he would have been on a farm and raised cattle no matter what. It did not matter to him what came. He was going to be there and he was going to do that. My dad's a little bit the same way. Dad had to work off the farm. My dad worked 3 jobs the entire time I was growing up. My mom worked 1.5. They bought 50 acres and moved to southwest Missouri in 1980. That was a fun time, wasn't it? So that's what we learned to start with. And so we had to understand that it was a business because that was the only way my mom and dad were going to get a start. No matter what I do in my life, I will never find an opportunity to work as hard as my dad has. No matter if I go trying to look for work, I'll never find a way to work as hard as he has. In our business today, we have to see it as that. I made the comment to you that Grandpa would have done it no matter what my dad would have. I almost kind of feel that way, but I'm probably in the minority because when we ask why aren't the next generation coming back, and I gave you the laundry list of the reasons we've given them not to come back, here's the other big important thing. The next generation coming to the ranch, if it hasn't already been looked at like a business, it is now. And if it's not a profitable business, they love that way of life. But most of them are going to go do something else. It has to be run as a business. It has to be profitable. The buzzword in the industry today is sustainable. Now, I'm not a rocket scientist, but I will tell you what I believe is the definition of sustainability, and that's profitability. That's sustainable to me. And so we have to look at our cattle operations as a business. Let's talk about the people. Who, what, when, where, why, right? You say, well, Josh, that's pretty basic. It is. But how many of us, when we think about the people that we interact with every single day, look at it and think about who are our people? What do they actually need? When do they need it? Where are they at? And then why do they need it? Are we considering those things? Every other business in the world considers those things. Do we? I live in the southwest corner of Missouri. You can rest assured that almost every single person is going to have a set of calves to pull off the side of a cow and sell sometime about November. Is that when the business needed all those calves to come flooding through the gate? No. But nobody was actually thinking about when do they need it. We were just operating on what we've always done. We have to be able to answer these questions about who our people are. And so a lot of times when we think about who are our people, is this your customer? I've thrown a few pictures up here. Perhaps you see a feedlot that you're delivering calves to directly. Perhaps you see next to that a livestock market where we're taking them and to the local livestock market, we're going to auction them off and sell them. Perhaps you're selling them privately, a set of bred heifers or something. Somebody's come out to the ranch and they're going to walk through and look at them. If I ask you who are your people, you might have one of these pictures in your mind. Perhaps you've got another one that resembles it closely. But often in the cattle industry, this is who we think about when we say, who is our customer? Now, for the rest of this discussion, I want us to think about it like this. We can't look at our customer as the next guy we're selling our calves to. Whoever that is in the supply chain, we cannot look at our customer as the next guy that we're selling our cattle to. We have to look at it as the last guy in the line that we're selling our customer to. And rather than looking at pictures that look like this, we need to consider the fact that the last person in line needs to be this image in our mind. This is our people. This is who we sell to. Somebody walking through a grocery store picking out a roast, somebody going to a nice steakhouse to eat a steak. These are the people that consume our product. We're not in the cattle business, we're in the protein business. We supply a protein to feed the world. And we've heard today it's a growing world. The stage is set for us. But we have to be thinking about these people. Where does new money enter the beef industry? We can sell cattle back and forth all day. Did any new money come to our industry? No, it didn't. The only new place that money comes into our industry is right here. We have to be thinking about these people. This is the only place that we're actually going to get new money into our industry. We drive our business thinking about these people as our customers. These are the people I get up every day and make breeding decisions for. Not these people. They're great. I need them. We sell a couple hundred bulls a year. We're going to market calves directly to the feedlot as well. We're going to retain ownership on some of them. I get that. But when I started my business, I had those 4 cows. I started with 2 bulls to sell. I wrote a letter. I laid out all the EPDs. I put every piece of information in there that you could possibly put in there. I mailed it out to all the people that I had contacts for, that I went to church with and knew from school. I sent it out to everybody. I didn't get a single response. My dad bought both those bulls. He was my first customer. Good old dad. But I remember the line that I put in that first letter. In fact, I still have a copy of it. And when Corey and I wrote in there, we understand that the product that we help produce, we will not meet every single person who consumes it. But we do know that all of the bulls that we produce will end up producing a product that goes on somebody's plate and they're going to eat it. So we can't look at it like this. We have to be focused on this. Have to be focused on the end. So what does that consumer actually want? What does the consumer in the world want today? Troy did a great job of laying some of that out. Some of you had questions. Mr. Giles asked one that pointed out some of the things that drive it. But let's think about this. They want quality. And here's the neat thing. They're willing to pay for it. There's a lot of things, just ask my wife when we're done here in a little bit, there's a lot of things I want that I am not willing to pay for. The consumer actually wants quality, and they have demonstrated that they're willing to pay for it. The other thing we have to do in our business is create a captive, reliable source of that product. I work in the Angus business. You know what the number one thing is that limits certified Angus beef from gaining new accounts today? Supply. They can't go to another retailer and set up that they want to supply them with CAB to sell in their stores unless they can do it week after week after week. And right now, they don't have the supply to go gather those new big accounts. We need a captive supply of the most high-quality meat that we can possibly get. We've built our program based on that because that's what the numbers tell us is important. This demonstrates it farther. Now, I want to explain something to you. You see the yellow line that demonstrates the percentages of prime carcasses. Now, you will see the red lines trending upward from about 2017 on that demonstrates the price paid, the premium paid for that prime. Now, I am not an economist, but I graduated top 10 in my class. There was 12 of us, but I'm still very proud of it. And what I was taught was when supply went up and we had an abundance of something, the price that we had to pay for it went down. And if we had a limited supply of something, then we had to pay a lot more for it. I see some of you didn't graduate in the top 10. You have bewildered looks on your face. Let me teach the economics lesson again. If there's a drought and we don't have much hay, we pay a lot more for the hay, don't we? And if it rains all the time and we have an abundance of hay, we get to buy quite a bit cheaper, don't we? Why is it that as the percentage of prime carcasses that we have had, and you see the yellow line tick off because it was printed before 22 finished and they got on the December run, but why do we see that yellow line of prime carcasses that we've continued to produce keep going up, while at the same time we see the graph going up for the premium paid for them? I thought if supply went up, we didn't have to pay as much for it. This breaks every lesson anybody was taught in economics class. It breaks it all. That's a cool thing. If our conference this next couple days is all about the numbers, these are numbers we should be paying attention to. If you're a young person who wants to try and make it in the cattle business, these are numbers that the consumer is telling you, waving a giant flag saying, pay attention to this. We want to pay you more for these things. I want you to think about something. You need to remember that in the agriculture industry, quality has always paid. We can see a picture here of a nice cornfield. I'm not a crop farmer. We raise rocks in southwest Missouri where I live. But I'm told that when you go harvest corn, right, that they pay you based on the quality of that corn, the dryness, the bushel weight, all those things. Same thing happens in cotton. I went to the Boot Hill, Missouri one time. Guy brought in a bale of cotton. They ran it through the little factory there. He sat there in a nice little lounge that they had for the customers coming in there. It went all the way through there. They cleaned it, processed it, weighed it, took it across the road. It sat in a warehouse getting ready to ship out. And at the end of that 45 minutes that he was sitting in that lounge, you know what he got? A check. He was paid for the bale of cotton that he brought in there based on how good that bale of cotton was. Wheat's the same way. The dairy industry has certainly been that way. For those of you who don't know this bottom picture, that's what we do in southwest Missouri to make the payment. We cut Kentucky 31 fescue seed. Those are combines that were used when they were new in Kansas or Texas probably, and when you all have worn them out and parked them in a fence row for 10 years, people in Missouri go get them. And then we try and cut fescue seed with them. But even there, they weigh that fescue seed, they check it for the purity, they understand the moisture content, and they pay you for the quality that you produced. It's always been that way in the agriculture industry. Now I want you to think about this. This is participation time. Andy, I'll use you. I've got bale A and bale B. Now, I'm going to sell you one of those bales. I want $275 for the bale. Is there anything you want to know before you pick which one you want to buy? What difference does that make? Andy said, what's the grade of the bale? He wanted to know how the hay tested. I don't understand why that's important. They're both wrapped in white plastic. They're out in the field. I want to sell them for $275. Why in the world would you want to know the grade of the hay? You're going to hold firm to that. Andy's a hard sell. For some reason, Andy wants to know what's in the bales before he'll pick. Does anybody else want to pick a bale to buy for $275? Oh, what difference does that make? They look about the same size. She wanted to know what they weigh. The audacity of you people to want to know what's inside and what it weighs is mind-boggling to me. Well, let me explain. In bale A is some of the nicest dairy quality alfalfa that you can put up. And I'm thankful to get to buy that from a neighbor who went out of the dairy business and still loves to bale alfalfa. And bale B over here is some of the nicest aftermath fescue you can put up in Missouri in July on a 106-degree day. There's a difference, isn't there? And when I asked people which one they wanted to buy, for some reason we wanted to know the quality of the hay, and we wanted to know what they weigh, and all these doggone things, and I don't understand it because here, we expect buyers to just buy them, don't we? They're black, they got 2 ears, they got 4 legs. Why would someone have the audacity to ask the question of me, what's inside of them? I just want to sell them to them. Now, I'm not going to put you through the rigmarole of picking one because you kind of already understand the point from the hay, don't you? But if you can't see, I think it's a pretty good screen, but this is what we call void of marbling, right? This is what we call what I like to eat. Prime. There's a difference. And yet somehow, often in our industry today, we quickly say we want to know what's inside the hay bale, but we expect people to buy them the other way and pay us up there a good premium for them. There's a difference. There absolutely is a difference. So quality, you've heard about it, frankly, in about every presentation you've had today. They have talked about quality. And that's where the numbers are going to tell you to go. If your conference, if you believe the theme of your conference is all about the numbers, again, nearly every single presenter has said this is what we need to focus on. If we think in the United States of America that we're going to get in a race with other places in the world to produce a low-quality commodity product and we're going to win, we've lost our mind. They have cheaper labor, they're not regulated in the same way, and they will beat us on a price every single time. And when you're not trying to buy quality and you're only price shopping, what's your goal? To buy it the cheapest. We will get beat. But we also, in the United States of America, have the ability to produce the highest quality product anywhere in the world as consistently as anybody. People in the world have continued to get a taste of that, and they want it, they're willing to pay for it. So how do we actually create quality? You've heard this word today too. I did a little radio show here a few weeks ago, and a guy was interviewing me. He said, and he was very upfront with me. He said, there's a lot of people out there that are critics of yours, and they say you're just a carcass breeder. I said, thank you. Because at the end of the day, what are we all doing? Are we trying to raise beef? Has anybody ever went to a white tablecloth restaurant and you sit down and a great waiter that's been trained exquisitely comes out and you ask him, do you have any specials tonight? And he says, just a minute. And he goes back in the back, and he comes leading out 2 calves. He says, we've got red cattle tonight and black cattle tonight. Which one would you like? They're both on special. It's never happened, has it? Because where we saw that picture where new money comes from in our industry, who our people are, that consumer, they're concerned about this. They don't care if they were purple or polka dot or what they were. They want a good eating experience, and they want it every single time. And at the price they're paying for it, they deserve it, don't they? That's what we want. We all expect that. And so we focus on these things to deliver that. That's what we've done in our business. Andy asked me to speak to, can we make it in the 21st century? Not if we don't listen to the consumer. but we're certainly going to give it a go if we do listen to them. These are some of the things that we do. Other people have spoke to this much greater than I will. We utilize data in our program. We have from day one. It has to be reliable data. We select genetics based on that. There's a sequence to it. We print every EPD you can possibly print in our sale book. We take every single measurement you can possibly take. We use not one but 2 DNA tests. Methogenetics is a commercial test our customers use, and we also use it on our bulls. We're a total AI program, and that's how we deliver those things. Lots of us have things like this laid on our dash, don't we? Right? There's a piece of paper with information wrote on it. It's blown out the window 3 times. It's got wet twice. It's covered in mud and manure, and you're just hoping to get it to the desk before you lose it. We take this information and we turn it into this. That's how we've built our program. If you want to get in the business and you're starting from nothing, I would encourage you to consider some form of this. People have told me sometimes that maybe I'm focused. That's okay, right? Our theme is discipline plus proven genetics creates value. So sometimes I may be disciplined like a racehorse. It's not that I can't see what else is happening to me. I don't want to run into the horse next to me. But I'll pick on us Angus breeders for a while. Sometimes we're like fish. We get attracted to shiny objects. And we jump on whatever comes along and had a flashy ad and the page was cool, and then we get the hook. We have to actually be willing to be focused in our programs. And finally, we talk about the performance. And many of you probably thought when I said people, product, performance that we were going to talk about performance in cattle. You decide what performance you need in cattle. I'm not here in a few short minutes to tell you that. But if you people want to get, young people want to get in the cattle business, understand that you're going to have to know how your business is performing. Is it good? Is it bad? How do we know? I had a bull customer come up to me one time. He said, I need to buy a bull. I said, that's great. I'm your man. He said, I need this bull to increase my weaning weights. I said, we can certainly work on that, sir. I said, what were your weaning weights last year? I don't know. I thought to myself, this is going to be easy. I'll sell him a bull, and next year I'll just tell him they're bigger. Right? We have to know what we're doing, right? We have to be able to study our business. So how do we understand the performance of a business? I think it requires a plan. There are 3 things that I believe that you need in a plan. First, it has to be predictable, a plan has to be measurable, and it has to be repeatable. Every plan has to be those 3 things. My wife builds buildings for a living. Now, when she designs a building, she's going to tweak on it until it's done. But when she starts that process, she has to have some concept that the building is actually something that can be built. Right? It has to have some level of predictability. It has to be measurable. Remember the illustration we just gave about the man who wanted to increase weaning weights but had no idea what his weaning weights were? How do we increase them if we haven't measured them in the first place? And finally, we need a plan to be repeatable. Let me share this with you. I like to eat. You can see that. Even the people sitting all the way in the back can see that I like to eat. My wife is an excellent cook, and she made a peach pie one time, and it was the best peach pie that you have ever had in your entire life. Her grandmother has worked with her before she passed away on how you make the crust, and she'd get the water to a certain temperature, and she'd set the bowl in it and cool it. And she made a peach pie, guys. I'm telling you, you have never had a piece of peach pie like this. When I cut into it, it's still warm, and I pulled it out with the little pie server, and it didn't run anywhere, go anywhere. It was just the perfect piece of peach pie, and we have never had it again because she had no idea how she made it. It wasn't repeatable. I wish she'd never made it in the first place. Everyone's been a letdown since then. I still eat them thinking that pie is going to come back. A plan has to be repeatable. And finally, I would leave you with this. Many of you may know who Peter Drucker is, read some of his books, or followed some of his business models. He's done a lot in the business world in which we live in today. And Peter Drucker says this: the only valid definition of a business purpose is a satisfied customer. The only valid definition of a business purpose is a satisfied customer. Andy, I'll conclude by trying to answer your question that you charged me with to answer by this. Can a young American start their own beef business in the 21st century? If they understand what Peter Drucker said about a business, they identify the purpose of it, and the only thing they focus on is satisfying that customer. And Andy, I would tell you and everybody else in this room with a resounding yes, as loud and as emphatically as I could tell you, yes, a young American can make it in the ranching business in the 21st century, and we have to. I appreciate you all so very much for giving my family and I the opportunity to join you. We've enjoyed it a great deal. Thank you again very much.
Just a second. Josh, awesome. How about a dynamic speaker? Didn't he do a great job? All right, we've got time for 2 quick questions for Josh Worthington. Yeah. Time for 2 quick questions, and then I need young Holloway to come up here to give an announcement here in just a second. Who has a question for Josh Worthington? Who has a quick question? Yes, ma'am.
Did anyone, as you started out, did anyone tell you you're crazy, you can't do that?
Repeat that question.
She asked the question whenever I started out, did anyone ask the question, you're crazy, you can't do that? Yes, ma'am. And I would tell you that you will go to no guidance counselor or school counselor today and tell them that you're going to get in this business and that you're going to start with nothing and make it. You're not going to leave college, and your college professor is going to tell you that's a good idea, and you're certainly probably not going to go to your banker, and your banker is going to say, yeah, I think that's a good idea to quit your day job when you're 33 years old. You don't have any land. You don't own but 4 cows that you're running in a rental house yard. Yes, ma'am. There was plenty of people that told me that I was crazy. One of the things Willie shared as he was leaving was that sometimes you got to take a risk. And, my dad's told me my entire life. Only thing my dad's ever said, I wish you could meet him. He's not necessarily done what we would call dynamic, but he's the most genuine person on the face of God's green earth. And my dad has told me this all the time, that you put God first, family second, and everything else third. So
How about that?
When I started that business, I tried to keep God first. I wanted to keep my family second, and all of this stuff we were starting were third. And my thought was, if all the stuff in third fell apart, I'd still have 1 and 2. And that was it.
Yeah, I think that's worth a round of applause right there. Josh, thank you.
Thank you.
Andy's got some goodies for you as a way to say thanks for your efforts and your sharing from your heart and your business and your family. Thank you very much.